Hey guys, how's it going? We are looking at the New Testament still, so we are going to be talking about Second Corinthians, okay? So Second Corinthians is the third letter from Paul we get in the New Testament. Paul is super influential in just how we know about Christ and what salvation looks like and all those things. And a lot of it was done not as a professor teaching students, but as a man who cared about those who were following Christ. And so he would write letters to pastors, to individuals, to churches he'd been at, to places he wanted to go, things like that. And so we looked at First Corinthians, we saw him talking about problems and how the gospel fixes those problems. And in Second Corinthians, what we get is Paul modeling what the gospel does, which is continuing to show grace and show the love of God, even to people who are continuing to mess that up. So we know from Second Corinthians that one, we know that this isn't the first time he's wrote to the church in Corinth. He cares enough about them that even when they don't listen the first time, he doesn't give up. And from what we see in Second Corinthians, we know that he's went back there to talk to them. And this probably actually isn't even the letter that he sent right after First Corinthians. This is probably at least the third letter he's written, maybe the fourth, to those people. And so what we see is Paul trying to reconcile his relationship with Corinthians, their relationship with each other, and their relationship with God, which is ultimately what the gospel is our being made right before God. And when we are truly anchoring ourselves in the gospel, then we are right with God. We really bury the sin in our lives. We don't walk in a cheap grace, and we'll talk about that probably in another letter. But we really want a good relationship with God. And so the questions of, well, what would God be okay with me doing? I remember when I was growing up as a teenager, I would think to myself or ask my youth pastor, what can I do with my girlfriend before I'm committing a sin? And the real question I should have been asking in my heart is, what all can I do to show God I love him? How does that look in a relationship with my girlfriend? How does that look in a relationship with others? And so when we realize who we are in Christ, we should be all about making ourselves right before him. Not because he demands that, but because we want to. And we see that modeled and fleshed out a lot in Second Corinthians. Yes, their problems are a little different than ours, but the way we see Paul handle that and how he addresses the problem of reconciliation with fellow believers, with believers and unbelievers, and with us with Christ is something that has not changed since Paul wrote this letter hundreds of years ago. Love you guys.